Released in 1979, Rapper's Delight by a previously unknown group called the Sugarhill Gang would put hip-hop on the map as a potent force on record forevermore, selling thousands of copies, so much so that the label had trouble keeping up with demand. It would crack the American Top 40 charts and also establish its label, Sugarhill Records, as the preeminent source for hip-hop in the first few years of the 1980s. Stay tuned for my look at the Sugarhill Gang and Sugarhill Records. Sugarhill Records was founded in the late 1970s in Englewood, New Jersey by Sylvia Robinson, along with her husband Joe. Sylvia had started in the music business very young as a singer in the 1950s. She had had a big hit as a duet with her guitarist Mickey Baker under the name Mickey and Sylvia. Their song Love is Strange hit the charts and would many years later feature on the soundtrack to the film Dirty Dancing. In the 1960s, Sylvia married her husband Joe, continued to perform as a solo singer, had a hit in 1973 called Pillow Talk, a sensual song that was originally written for Al Green, who declined to record it due to his religious beliefs. Sylvia recorded it herself, turned it into a hit, and would record solo albums through the 70s, while also starting up a variety of record labels with husband Joe. However, by the late 1970s, their finances had gotten overextended. They needed an infusion of capital. They needed to find something that would generate some revenue. As fate would have it, Sylvia attended one of her relatives' birthday parties at a club called Harlem World, which featured rapping by the DJ Lovebug Starsky. Sylvia became convinced that this style of music could be translated to record and turned into a hit, began searching for talent. At this time, many of the established hip-hop DJ and MC crews had no interest in making records. Hip-hop, strictly a live phenomena that would stretch out for many hours. Many could not believe that it could be contained on a record and that would have little commercial possibility anyway. Sylvia believed otherwise. As a veteran of the music business, she could smell something that would become a hit. As fate would have it, through help from her son, Joe Jr., a bit more tuned into the music young people were listening to, she auditioned a pizza joint worker called Henry Jackson, known as Big Bank Hank. He worked as a bouncer while also working in Crispy Crust Pizza that had relocated to Englewood, was very close to the Robinsons' studios, and auditioned, reportedly rapping over a tape of Grandmaster Caz, who was involved in a group that Jackson was also managing. Sylvia liked what she heard, offered him a deal to record a song. They got together with a couple more rappers to fill out a group. Sylvia, very interested in the significance of numbers, wanted a group of 3, to which point she would record Michael Wright, known on record as Wonder Mike, and Guy O'Brien, known as Master G. Wonder Mike and Big Bank Hank, both 22 years of age. Master G, the youngest of the group, still in his teens. They repaired to the Robinsons' studio at Sugarhill Records, named for a neighborhood in Harlem that Sylvia Robinson admired. There, the Sugarhill Records house band, which included members of the wood, brass, and steel funk group, such as Doug Wimbish and Skip McDonald, and also the R&B group Positive Force, laid down a track that recreated the groove of Chic's late disco hit, Good Times. The song was called Rapper's Delight, but it would be an immediate success, selling thousands of copies upon release. the Robinsons having trouble keeping up with demand. However, it would also create fault lines and controversies over commerce versus culture. The Sugarhill Gang, a prefabricated group, if you will, that had no track record, no reputation on the street. They had not spent years rocking parties and engaging in MC battles, and more controversially, many of the lyrics to Rapper's Delight had been borrowed from Grandmaster Caz, who received neither credit nor compensation. Big Bank Hank having borrowed Caz's rhyme book to put together the song. Rapper's Delight coming out as the first release on Sugarhill Records, establishing the 12-inch single, a format that had been popularized by disco, would also carry over into hip-hop as the dominant form of releases for the first few years of the 1980s, giving ample space for the stretched out grooves, the tag team MC rhymes, the back and forth trading of verses. Also controversially, it would basically cover Chic's Good Times and nearly result in a lawsuit once the members of Chic heard it. The initial pressings of Rapper's Delight did not have any writing credit to the composers of the song. However, later pressings would. This would establish hip-hop on record, not the first rap record, but the first big hit, and would establish Sugarhill Records as the home for hip-hop for the first few years of the 1980s.
Now what you hear is not a test, I'm rapping to the beat. And me, the groove, and my friends are gonna try to move your feet. You see, I am Wonder Mike, and I like to say hello. Up to the black, to the white, the red, and the brown, and the purple, and yellow. But first, I gotta bang, bang, the boogie to the boogie. Say up, jump the boogie to the bang, bang, boogie. Let's rock. You don't stop, rock the rhythm, that'll make your body rock. Well, so far you've heard my voice, but I brought two friends along. And next on the mic is my man Hank. Come on, Hank, sing that song. Check it out. When I'm pimp the dimp, the ladies pimp, the women fight for my delight. But I'm the grand master with the 3 MCs that shock the house for the young ladies. And when you come inside, into the front, you do the freak spank and do the funk.
The runaway success of Rapper's Delight by the newly minted Sugarhill Gang, a group that had been put together to make that record, had only been together for a few weeks, afforded the Robinsons the opportunity to expand their roster of acts for Sugarhill Records. A few weeks later, the Sugarhill Gang was out on the road promoting the song. This tour took them to the small southern town of Columbia, South Carolina. There, a trio of school friends named Gwendolyn Blondie Chisholm, so called because she dyed her hair blonde, Cheryl the Pearl Cook, and Angela Brown conspired to get to the Sugarhill Gang show. They had been performing around town, singing and then rapping as they absorbed songs like Rapper's Delight and King Tim 3, Personality Jock by the Fatback Band that had come out shortly before it, had begun adding rapping to their repertoire. They called themselves The Sequence. They managed to get to the concert. Blondie's mother, very strict, forbade her to go, told her if she walked out that door not to come back again. Blondie defied her mother at the age of 20, left home to go to the Sugarhill Gang concert, never returned back again, initially moving in with her best friend, Cheryl the Pearl. The trio did manage to get themselves to the show where they were supposed to have tickets, managed to finagle their way inside as the tickets did not materialize, and even managed to talk their way backstage by boasting that they could sing and rap just as well as the Sugarhill Gang. Backstage, they were met by an older woman who was sitting by watching the proceedings, who asked them to perform some of their songs. They did so, got a polite response, then realized they'd forgotten to do their one song that incorporated rapping, a song called Funk You Up. The lady asked them to do that song, then got excited and asked them if they wanted to make a record with her. That lady was Sylvia Robinson, who soon after got her musicians Skip McDonald and Doug Wimbish to begin constructing a bass line for the song right then and there, and told the girls that she would send for them when they were ready to make a record. About a week later, she did indeed send for them to come to New Jersey, initially putting them up in the Robinsons' own family home, treating them like members of the family. The girls, very naive to the music business, to the big city, the Robinsons warning them to stay away from guys, drugs, and alcohol, attempting to keep them on the right path. And the song Funk You Up would be a further smash hit for the Sugarhill label, eventually reaching gold status, included on the Street Beat compilation of Sugarhill Records hits. Funk You Up by The Sequence. The Sequence would go on to record 3 albums for the Sugarhill Records label under their own name. This is the second from 1982, The Sequence, on the iconic Sugarhill Records label. The Sequence there, Blondie, Cheryl the Pearl, and Angela Brown. They would also contribute to songwriting, performing with the Sugarhill Gang. The two groups initially did not like each other, but eventually came to become friends. The Sequence would co-write and add vocals to Rapper's Reprise, which would appear on the debut album by the Sugarhill Gang, appearing in February 1980. Sugarhill Records would operate somewhat on a Motown method of production, with Sylvia and her husband Joe taking care of business, scouting for new talent, aided by their son Joe Jr., while their in-house musicians, writers, and engineers took care of crafting the music. Sylvia herself, very hands-on, had a keen ear for a hit. As she would tell people, you could tell if a song is going to be a hit from the first 8 seconds. And the debut album, self-titled by the Sugarhill Gang, displays this joint effort of music making. Hip-hop's very first full-length LP, released early in February 1980, Sugarhill Gang. There they are there. This is a Canadian pressing on quality I picked up some years back out of a large former DJ collection. There's the guys there. Features, of course, Rapper's Delight, which covered the music of Chic's Good Times, not emceeing over the records, not sampled, but recreated live in the studio by the Positive Force R&B band, which also signed to Sugarhill Records. Would also feature musical contributions from drummer Keith LeBlanc, guitarist Skip McDonald, who would contribute to many of the Sugarhill hits over the next few years, later going on to work extensively with Adrian Sherwood in the UK. On a suggestion from Sylvia herself, the ladies of The Sequence, who had recently joined Sugarhill Records, would combine with the Sugarhill Gang for Rapper's Reprise, closing out the album. The two groups joining together initially did not like each other, but gradually warmed up, with Blondie even going on to date Master G for a time. The two groups hated that song, performed it live for a while until Big Bank Hank finally gave up and refused to perform it. Elsewhere, the Positive Force band would play Passion Play. And vocalist Craig Derry, who had been with the Wood Brass and Steel Band, would sing Here I Am. Only a few songs on the album actually rapped. Sylvia, not yet convinced of the long-term commercial viability of rapping, so half the record is R&B ballads, soul ballads, and Here I Am, in a canny bit of publicity, Sylvia would tell the media that that song had been sung by Big Bank Hank to deflect criticism of rappers as having no talent, actually sung by Craig Derry. First full-length LP by the Sugarhill Gang, first full-length LP for hip-hop, would lead to further hits by the Sugarhill Gang as they continued to capitalize on the success of Rapper's Delight. Eighth Wonder would follow in 1981, the next year, and feature further hits like the title track and Showdown, featuring a combination with Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. Sugarhill label, the True Groups combining for that track Showdown, and the ladies of the Sequence contributing lyrics to many of the Sugarhill Gang's hits, such as Apache, paying tribute to the legendary breakbeat by the incredible bongo band, and a video clip with the Sugarhill Gang prancing about in stereotypical Native American costumes, a video clip that probably would not be made today. Many of these songs by the Sugarhill Gang would appear on the now iconic Sugarhill Records logo, label and sleeve, the 12-inch single, the format for hip-hop in these early years. Here's The Word Is Out from 1983.
Clap your hands, everybody, and everybody just clap your hands. Fly girls, clap your hands. Fly guys, clap your hands.
Well, if you're feeling all right and you think you're on,
Somebody let me know. Everybody in the place put a whistle in your face. Scream it out and say, yo, hey.
you don't stop. I rock the rhythm that makes your finger pop. I said hip hop, and thanks a lot. Come on, everybody, give me what you got. I'm gonna tell you a little story about the Sugarhill Gang with the pow pow boogie and a big bang bang.
As Sugarhill Records continued to expand its roster in the early 1980s and its dominance of the hip-hop scene, they would focus not exclusively on recording rap groups, but also funk and what you might call post-disco, using the same kind of party-ready, bouncing, roller skating type jams as those used by their rap groups, of course crafted by the same pool of musicians such as Keith LeBlanc, Skip McDonald, and Doug Wimbish, as well as the Positive Force group. Many of these funk hits can be found on the Sugarhill various artists compilations such as Street Beat and Street Beat 2, two record sets sitting right alongside the better known rap hits, and these include contributions from such as The Sequence, who were equally adept at singing in more of a traditional gospel funk style as well as rapping, and the Mean Machine with Disco Dream, also the West Street Mob with breakdancing Electric Boogie. The West Street Mob was an alias for the Robinson's son Joseph Jr. and one of his friends, and would feature vocals and writing from The Sequence and others, something of a communal effort by the Sugarhill crew, and would receive their own LP on the Sugarhill label, but lesser known today, perhaps next to the rap groups. Sugarhill is another compilation, Sugarhill Express, a mix of funk and rapping. Hip-hop, rap, still not known for sure whether it was going to be a long-lasting genre or a passing fad, so many of these songs are all mixed together. Genre distinctions and rules not quite settled in yet. The Robinsons would also expand into the Washington, D.C. go-go scene in the early 1980s by signing Trouble Funk, who had a big hit with the title track of their debut LP, Drop the Bomb, appearing once again on the Sugarhill label and featuring Washington, D.C.'s go-go beat, maybe not dissimilar to hip-hop in its expansive, sprawling kind of party-ready jams. Similar aesthetic, perhaps. However, it would be hip-hop that Sugarhill Records would be mainly known for.
I'll drop the bomb. That's it. Give me drop the bomb on the white boy too. Drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. Give me drop the bomb on the white boy too. Drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. Give me drop the bomb on the freak crew. Drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. Give me drop the bomb on the Jamie Carter crew, y'all. Drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. Give me drop the bomb on the Super Great crew. Drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. Now Super Great crew, now what you gonna do? Drop the bomb. Drop the bomb.
As Sugarhill Records' position as the preeminent hip-hop label became unassailable by the early 1980s, they assimilated more and more of the top-name DJ and MC crews, the first-generation artists who had built up years of street credibility, grinding it out before live audiences, which the label's flagship act, the Sugarhill Gang, had not had. These would include the Treacherous Three, featuring a fast-rapping MC by the name of Cool Mo D, the Funky 4+1, who featured one of the earliest female MCs, Shaw Rock. The Sequence themselves, one of the first female rap acts ever to record, as well as unquestionably the first Southern rap act to appear on record, the Southern US, later known as the Dirty South in rap circles. Some of these artists had started out recording at other labels, resisting going to Sugarhill Records or resisting altogether, feeling that records were not where hip-hop belonged, that it was a live performance art. Spoonie G had started out at Enjoy Records, owned by his uncle, before moving to Sugarhill, where Sylvia Robinson paired him with the ladies of the Sequence for Monster Jam, a hit for both. Perhaps most tellingly, however, Sugarhill would absorb Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. Grandmaster Flash, one of the icons of hip-hop, was a legend on the streets before he'd ever made a record. And him and the Furious Five would join Sugarhill, recording songs like Freedom, as well as It's Nasty, Genius of Love, again on that iconic Sugarhill label and 12-inch disco sleeve. It's Nasty, Genius of Love would incorporate elements of the Tom Tom Club's hit Genius of Love, which had a certain feel of the hip-hop coming from the New York streets. The label Sugarhill would also release the soundtrack to the acclaimed hip-hop film Wild Style, which would appear in 1983. Official soundtrack to Wild Style, a film put out by director Charlie Ahern, featuring not professional actors and only the very loosest of scripts, but following all aspects of hip-hop culture, DJing, MCing, graffiti, and b-boy dancing, performed by the actual artists themselves, who were legendary in their fields. Soundtrack to Wild Style. However, it would be Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five who would perhaps cement Sugarhill Records' legacy in 1982 with a song which they were initially not interested in recording. It was Sylvia Robinson's idea, with lyrics by Duke Booty and Melly Mel from the Furious Five, a song that would tackle serious subjects of crime, poverty, inflation. The song would be called The Message, would become a legendary hip-hop track, which Rolling Stone put as #1 on its most influential hip-hop songs of all time, and would be included on the debut album by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, again out of that former DJ collection, and of course on the iconic Sugarhill Records label. However, that song would spark a schism between Grandmaster Flash and members of the Furious Five. Unfortunately, many of the groups beginning to fall apart by the early 1980s. The sequence themselves would split up, all members remaining in music to some extent, with Angela Brown marrying a rapper by the name of Stone to reemerge in more recent years as soul singer Angie Stone. By the mid-1980s, however, Sugarhill Records was facing business setbacks, competition from new labels, as well as complications from a distribution deal with MCA Records, and by the mid-1980s, the label had folded. This has been my look at Sugarhill Records, the preeminent hip-hop label, the first major hip-hop label, and one that cemented hip-hop as a commercial force on record. Thanks for watching, guys.
If you're ready for this,
Say you're ready for this.
if you're ready for this,
Say you're ready for this.
are you ready for this? We're ready for this. Are you ready for this? We're ready for this. What we just can't miss.
We just can't miss.
What we just can't miss.
With a beat like this.
It's the joint. We're gonna prove to the world that we're for real. We're gonna prove to everybody we know the real deal. We got